Did a team called AV Alta spark a new California rivalry? There's another new American Soccer League in the works, and the pros and cons of America switching to the European soccer calendar. That and more here on Wednesday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favoriteest country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. David Peckham Crotesin. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you're well. How are you?
You can call him David Peckham if you want. And I do think we ran a poll or something, but I'm going to call him Franz Peckenpower because that makes me happy. Okay?
It just brings a smile as it rolls off the tongue. Peckenpower.
I think it's a better name. I just think it's a better name. I just think it's a better name. David Peckham, fine. Maybe it's the coif. Maybe it's the hair. Maybe it's the style. Maybe we have a stylish rooster. I don't know. But I like to think of our rooster as an incredible defender he would not want to mess with. That's what I think.
In a time of uncertainty and revolution, are you talking about a coup to our chicken, to our mascot? He's only a couple weeks into his power. I guess you attack when he's most vulnerable. He hasn't established his power, has David Peckham. So Peckenpower might peck away at the pedestal of leadership here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it is David Peckham, then there needs to be, so he's a rooster. Yeah, we need a hen that's like Victoria Peckham. Is that what we're doing? Is that
I'm sure
I don't know.
Pecks at him.
There's probably a Posh Spice pun in there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. So let's move on.
All right, fair enough. Move on. But we wake with a monumental milestone under our belts, Jason. 2,000 subscribers to the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. We did it. I know the followers were driving you crazy, being about like 5 short of 2,000 for a couple hours there. I could just across the country, I could feel your ADD or OCD, sweat just dripping down your temples there.
Yeah, I did send a message and said it was driving me nuts. Although as we were creeping towards 2000, I kept thinking about, because I graduated from high school in 1998. So that area is very, if you look at, those years were very important years in the life of Jason Davis. And I was like, 1997, what was I doing in 1998? What was I doing in graduating from high school, going to college. And now we're at 2002. So I guess I'll be thinking about that year next as we creep higher and higher.
2000 decent year. But thank you everyone for subscribing thus far. And if you haven't done so, please do so. I got to thank to whoever it was in my group chats. I tried to ease your angst by blasting all of the chats that I was in, trying to get over that 2000. And thankfully, one of my group chats got us over there. Thank you to whoever that was, and keep on clicking that subscribe button. There's also memberships now on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. So, we're expanding here on Morning Kick Around.
Yeah, just so people know, I mean, I'm sure lots of people know how memberships on YouTube work, but there are some perks that come with being a member of the channel. You will get some extra content. Perhaps there will be content that will be available to you first. We will do some reply videos and things like that, comments, questions, concerns. Let's talk American soccer. Let's do it.
If you want to follow along on social media at MKickaround, we're on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us a note at morningkickaround@gmail.com. You can find us as a podcast on your favorite audio platform. And you can also support financially at coffee.com/morningkickaround. All right, let's get to it. Let's roll Wednesday's long balls here on Morning Kick Around. Let's go. Long balls here for Wednesday, April 16th. I'm Robert. He's Jason. We'll start it off. New memberships are getting rolling here on Morning Kick Around. Mike Thomas, thank you, sir. Ardent supporter and now a member of Morning Kick Around. Midweek action continues to excite us here on Morning Kicker on Open Cup Round 3. We're halfway through. There was a slate of games Tuesday night, and then we look forward with excitement for Wednesday. I stayed up a little bit past my bedtime watching AV Alta beat Orange County. A little bit of a, beating the team that's a little bit more established than you. And it went all the way out to shootout, and there were some fun moments in commentary there.
Yeah, we're gonna get to those. We definitely. I mean, we were previewing these games ahead of this round.
It was one of the ones we picked, I think.
Yeah, I think we definitely picked. Well, because again, we had AV Alta, who is a brand new team in USL League One, who had already won via a dramatic ending against LAFC 2, I believe is who they beat in the last round. So now they've beaten a couple of Southern California teams. I think I've got here the scores. No, that's not today. Scores from yesterday.
Ooh, yeah.
Maybe can't see them all. So obviously it's that's one of the stories. AV Alta beating Orange County. You got Union Omaha. That I like that one too. That one is interesting to me because that's a lower division team and a League One team beating a championship side in San Antonio FC. Obviously, well-known club San Antonio FC. Pittsburgh Riverhounds took down Columbus Crew 2. That's third division losing to second division, but I still think that one's interesting because of the MLS connection there. I think we only had a couple of teams from MLS clubs still involved. Second teams, reserve teams, MLS Next Pro. Tacoma Defiance beating Oakland Roots. I put on my Oakland Roots shirt today in defeat. Very sad about that, but Tacoma Defiance moving on. And you mentioned the commentary situation, so maybe we can bring that in because it set the stage for us here. Because you said you were watching this game, Rob.
This was the game I got to watch from front to back last night, and it was a good match all the way through and through. Multiple lead changes, including some the final equalizer to make it 2-2 in the last 10 minutes of the game. Go through extra time and pretty standard overtime. A lot of roughhousing and wasting time and whatnot. But they get to the penalty shootout. And there's a huge electric sign with an arrow saying, supporters, come here for the penalty shootout. It's like a 50-foot electronic board. And then they come to the field, and the players are at the other end.
Oh, no, it's wrong. It was wrong.
So in the 1 minute that the players are getting ready, setting up for the penalty shootout, about, I'd say like 1,000 or 2 fans had to run all the way across the length of the stadium to attend the penalty shootout in the correct end.
Yeah, we actually have video of this from well, it's not going up for me. I'm not sure. Okay, I gotta take something off the screen. There we go. I'll add this up here. Okay, this is apparently first of all, shout out to Douglas Reyes Cerrone, I believe is his name, on Blue Sky, who clipped this. I grabbed it from his Blue Sky account. This is obviously via Paramount Plus, Golazo, CBS Network. I want to properly credit them.
Whoa. They went the wrong direction.
So funny. They had a huge sign saying go the other way.
They sent the fans to the standing supporters end, and the kicks are the other way. How does this keep happening? Gosh darn it.
Well, the fans are rushing to get behind that goal now.
It's about to be running of the wall part 2. Goodness.
You can see people in the background. Look at the
field.
You had one job.
Running. I don't know that's allowed in most places. I mean, I know this is lower division soccer in America, but I feel like that's probably a security concern in most places.
Really and that gentleman with the swimming cap who had like a pretty serious head injury was the one that actually ended up hitting the winning penalty at the end of the shootout.
Wow, okay. So we had a zombie situation.
Yeah, they had to keep his brains in his head, but he did well to finish it off. And
I'm leaving this up just because there's one more shot. There it is.
So there go the fans, single file, trying to get back the other way after they've been alerted to go to that end.
Yeah, that board right there, that huge electric board that was just there, was a huge arrow to telling them to go there.
That's so very funny. So very funny that they got all that wrong.
And the field access issues, just like last round with the Chattanooga flag planters, just like walking onto the field. You got a whole mob of fans running from one end of the field to the other. But AV Alta, I mean, amongst a couple teams with just amazing starts to life, the Open Cup, just like putting fuel on the fire for that. I mean, there are so many people that'll never forget that game. Plus, back, I mean, they won the round 2 in dramatic fashion at home, round 3 at home. I think the commentaries say they've started their existence as a club with 4 home wins as a club. So what a start for them. Not as fortunate though for Portland Hearts of was it Hearts
of Pine, Portland Hearts of Pine. It's sort of okay. I was actually trying to tell somebody about this yesterday on the radio. I was working with Gary O'Reilly, former English player, and I mentioned the Open Cup to get it in because it was obviously a very heavy Champions League day over there on the radio where we're focused on what's going on in Europe. And I mentioned the Open Cup because I'm an American soccer guy, and I was telling Gary about this, and he of course went into the English romantic. This is like the FA Cup, but at one point I said Portland Heart of Pines. No, Portland Hearts of Pine. It's like passers-by. You have to say the plural one first, and then it's the singular one second, and then it throws you off. So Portland Hearts of Pine. I love it. I think it's a great name.
New member alert. Angus, thank you so much. Joining the morning kick around membership. The MK Ultras are adding up here. Thank you so much, Angus. But Portland, great start to life as a club for them as well. Didn't quite get the third round win over Rhode Island. Rhode Island, they're a very young team, but very successful, going to USL final last year. Biggest lopsided result, obviously, that Charleston Battery over South Georgia Tormenta. And then also at the very top behind the logo, Columbus 2 got knocked out. So there's no 2 teams remaining, but
Tacoma Defiance. I mentioned this earlier when we were going through these scores. Tacoma Defiance is the Seattle Sounders too.
Fair enough.
They have their own branding and they play in Tacoma. So that is the only one, the MLS. Well, I guess that's the only MLS Next Pro team out of this batch of games, which was obviously yesterday's games. We also have today's games to take a look at here. And
some hot games today. Big, nice looking slate. Wednesdays, the last 3 Wednesdays in American soccer have been fire.
I mean, and there were some moments in the early games last night where it's like, oh, this isn't as entertaining as last week or last round rather. But I do think it picked up with the AV Alta penalty kick shootout victory. We had a couple of red cards in that Portland Hearts of Pine versus Rhode Island game. And then tonight has a chance to deliver. Let's look. I know you're headed out to Detroit City and Westchester, so you're going to see that one. FC Naples has made waves. If you saw our segment on where American soccer is right now and sort of celebrating a moment, in my thumbnail for that video, I put a FC Naples headline because FC Naples in a first year situation has made a lot of waves in Florida. That's a Florida derby, an East Coast Florida derby, West Coast Florida derby between Naples and Tampa. Obviously into 11 and Miami FC. Those are teams in the same level. That's not as interesting. Let's keep in mind, of course, but still, Colorado Springs Switchbacks and one Knoxville. So those are teams from 2 different levels. We also have Sacramento hosting El Farolito, and I'm torn by this one, Rob. My heart is wrenched asunder. Rended asunder. I don't know, whatever. I'm torn because I'm like that song, because Sacramento is my hometown team. Technically speaking, I was born there, but El Farolito is the darlings of the tournament. They're the only amateur side left, and the burrito team. How can I choose?
And it's wild too that El Farolito being the remaining amateur side, but I think I don't know how many winners there are, but they're amongst the winners of historical versions of this tournament under a different name, I believe. So steeped in history, El Farolito.
Yes.
That'll be a tough one. It's the darlings versus the hometown team. I mean, are you gonna just kind of hope for the best for both teams, or are you gonna really throw your chips in on Sacramento?
Look, as much as I love, again, my dear hometown of Sacramento, California, where I spent 2 months of my life, I have to go for the underdog here. I have to go for El Farolito. I have to think about the magic of this cup, the Cinderella story. That's what, when we get a Cal FC, when we get a, what's the team out of Baltimore? I can't remember. Christos. When we get a Harper's, I'm getting that wrong. There's a Colorado team, somebody remember that one. When we get No. This is an amateur team out of Colorado whose name is escaping me at the moment, who made a bit of a run. When the amateur teams succeed, it brings more attention. And there will be snobbish people who say, oh, if El Farolito beat a USL championship team, well, that must mean that the USL championship team is terrible. And really, the odds are very stacked against El Farolito tonight away in Sacramento. But that's what we want. That brings more attention. Of course, these games now being on Paramount Plus or whatever platform they're on, with CBS getting involved, means we could see that sort of upset. And wouldn't that be incredible?
Brandon in the chat saying, today we are all Farolito burritos. Do you agree with that from being a Sacramento in?
Sure. Today I'm a Farolito burrito. And as I said, I am 13 days away from a trip out to the West Coast to maybe visit El Farolito, among other things. So I'm perhaps I'll be there to celebrate with them another cup set.
If there's any Michiganders in the chat, I'll see you at the DCFC game whenever we go there. That's just a total magnet for all the soccer people in the area. It's actually kind of hard to watch the games whenever I go there. I end up just chit-chatting, but I'll do my best to bring the news on the street back to the program for DCFC versus Brand New Tide Westchester. Long ball number 2 here for Wednesday. News as we were building the show, the WPSL announces their intention to start a professional second division. WPSL is the women's premier soccer league, an American amateur league that started in 1998. But this morning, with news, they want to move into the pro game. The league's co-founder, Sean Jones, saying WPSL Pro is the bridge that's been missing, not just for players, but for communities, investors, and brands ready to be part of the next chapter of women's sports.
Yeah, Jeff Kassouf has a write-up on this over at ESPN, and I'm going to lean heavily on Jeff's reporting, which is the only way to go. In terms of, the bridge, this thing being, we know that, we've got the NWSL, which has navigated some treacherous waters and seems to be in a decent place. There are still some things hanging over the NWSL. Let's not pretend there aren't, but they've got teams that are building stadiums. They've got investment that is pretty incredible. Michelle Kang and all these things happening that gets exciting. NWSL is growing. We've got a team coming to Denver. We'll see about their stadium. There are other cities that are vying for an NWSL franchise. That is great news. Then we have the USL Super League, which is playing on the opposite calendar, right? Playing on the fall to spring calendar, which is, I think, getting a little bit of attention, particularly among women's soccer fans. A little bit tougher to stand out, right? But they're doing something, right? The USL Super League is doing something, and I'm encouraged by that. But they also want to be they're also a first division, right? They're also saying we're first division. We're not doing this second, third division thing. So there is a spot, I guess, right? There is you call it a gap. It's a gap between amateurs and pros, and maybe having something else that will allow more players to get involved in the game. And I guess, without knowing the details of this, and I am seeing a $1 million franchise fee. They expect to launch with 16 to 20 teams. They want to do this with the standard American soccer calendar from April to October. They want to start in 2026. Actually, they want to launch with an abbreviated fall season after the World Cup in 2026. That's here. And then go with a full season in 2027, which we should also mention is a Women's World Cup year. So that's sort of interesting as part of this as well. 15 teams have been conferred by the league. And by the way, Cleveland, who was angling for, I don't know if it's the same people, but it is, backed by several leaders of the group that recently fell short of landing an NWSL expansion team. Cleveland has decided that they're not going to wait around for NWSL to give them another shot. They're going to jump into this WPSL Pro. They want to build a $50 million 10,000-seat stadium in downtown Cleveland, and they want to do this for this women's team and for a men's MLS Next Pro team. So, again, ambition is easy, talking is easy, but at least we've got people willing to do that in American soccer right now. So it'll be fascinating because second division women's soccer is not it's not an obvious successful kind of idea. You have to really work to make it go.
I believe it says at the first line of this story from Jeff Kassouf says this is the first time there will be a second division women's pro league ever in the country. So to put it in context, obviously NWSL Division 1 and the newly formed USL Super League is a competing first division women's league, which is actually completing their first division of action. And then this is proposed to be in the second division. And then there's a question in the chat. What's the W League? That's the amateur version, essentially the parallel to the USL 2 in the
that's a USL league
ranks.
that is amateur. We do need a women's Open Cup. That's absolutely a thing, especially
there's
if there are talks of that. I think there's an idea of sort of a test tournament coming at some point that I think they're actually doing that, right? It's not NWSL teams, I don't believe. Somebody catch me up on this. And I'm sorry if I should have this information in my brain, but I believe that there is a women's Open Cup kind of tournament that is not
Audi Cup or something.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't involve everybody, but it does involve a set of teams, and I think it's meant as a test for getting to an idea of an Open Cup for the women's game. And maybe Chastain, it's not the Foudy Cup, it's the Chastain Cup. Robert,
Apologies.
You picked the wrong
the wrong ledge. The wrong legend. My apologies.
Yes. Yeah, there is a Chastain Cup that again is kind of a idea of a cup like the Open Cup. So there's that. Again, like I'm glad there's ambition. I'm glad there's an effort to move forward with not just, but again, this is sort of also in that sort of kind of scary way American soccer does it. Hey, I've got an idea. I'm not going to get involved with what already exists, or I'm not going to help augment that, or I'm going to do my own thing. And so you have another organization here. So now you have NWSL as an individual organization, essentially a business unto themselves. You have the USL, who is operating many leagues, but now a women's top division outdoor league. And now WPSL, which will be a third different organization involved in operating a professional soccer league in America. And again, on the men's side, MLS, USL, NISA tried. Looks like they've failed or trying to get, I know, who knows where NISA is right now. They exist in a netherworld between reality and fantasy. But I mean, it's just like it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That's the only thing I'll say. I'm not trying to be negative about this. I'm kind of excited to see what this is. If they're specific about being second division, but it is still a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how that plays out. But exciting news. Definitely the progression and movement and the will to do more in American soccer remains to be present with continued news of new leagues, teams, stadiums being built. Long ball number 3 here on Wednesday, April 16th. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has been stateside, very busy visiting a lot of different cities that are going to be hosting the big tournaments coming up. And he himself confirmed for the first time, it's been widely speculated that a playoff between LAFC and Club America could determine the last spot for the Club World Cup. There is some arbitration. Club Leon kicked out for the multi-club ownership rules, which is definitely selective use of that rule when you consider how Major League Soccer and other teams are put together that are also included in this tournament, the Club World Cup. That's would you say the reception has been tepid so far for the Club World Cup?
Tepid. I think it's hard to know. I mean, he's doing this tour. In fact, he said among his other quotes was, somebody said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you going to all these cities?"
A reporter said that?
Yeah, somebody asked him, and he was like, "Well, I got to tell people what this thing is that we're doing, which is obviously the Club World Cup." And, you know, we've had the Club World Cup before. We all dismissed it as kind of a sideshow. It wasn't important. It was always happening in Qatar or Japan or something. And not that those aren't viable places for tournaments. It's just, it was always kind of in this weird winter area. Like they always played it in December. and it was always a distraction for the European clubs. And then like LAFC or somebody would be involved, or Seattle would be involved. I think Seattle went to Morocco actually and played in it. And, they would lose, and at least stateside would go, okay, ho-hum. And then Chelsea would win it, or Man City would win it, or Real Madrid would win it.
Or Liverpool.
And then we would make jokes about how that trophy is going to go in a storage closet somewhere and never be seen again. And this is Johnny and FIFA trying to make it into something much bigger. And that sell job is fully happening. So I do think it's that part of this is interesting. You may have seen Johnny in the Oval Office with President Trump. You may have seen the trophy. Believe I also caught this on Blue Sky. I believe there are photos well after Johnny's visit when Trump is doing other presidential like things, and the trophy for the Club World Cup is right there. It's just sitting right there. It's like, why is that there? Does Trump like it because it's shiny and gold? And it's just
yeah. He was like, "What, Johnny? Why don't you leave it there for the summer, and then you can come pick it up when the tournament comes back?"
Do they have to make another? Do they make more than one of these? Is what I'm asking, because it looks complicated. So, did they make more than one of these? And if not, is Trump going to give it back so they can actually give it to the winner of this tournament? Okay, let's get to the business at hand, though, because as you mentioned, the news is that Gianni Infantino spoke directly to the idea of a playoff between LAFC and Club America to take Club Leon's spot. I think we have already acknowledged that there is some selective application of the multi-club ownership rules, at least if you imagine that, technically speaking, MLS is one organization that owns all of its clubs, and then everybody that runs a club is just they have an operators agreement, and again, on paper, technically speaking. But this is more about the spirit of the thing. So and I'm not trying to defend FIFA too much, right? But
I don't know. That seems to be your thing, right?
Yeah, right. I'm a big FIFA defender. I have a FIFA flag flying outside my house right now. If you wanted to come by, you could see it.
We'll see.
I don't want to be accused of defending FIFA too much, but the idea here is you don't want clubs who has leadership that are making decisions for both or three or however many clubs there are, right? The idea is there should be a division between the people making decisions for one club and the people making decisions for another one. So when multi-club ownership comes into play, say for Red Bull or for City Football Group or whatever, what FIFA wants to know is, are you wholly independent? You may be owned by the same people technically, but are you wholly independent as an operation, or as independent as you can get on the football side? And again, I don't know why they were not satisfied with Grupo Pachuca, but they are satisfied with some other kinds of multi-club ownership. And UEFA has made decisions about this with City Football Group and with Red Bull in the past. I don't know why. But the bottom line right now is that Club Leon's got to go in front of the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And if they do not win, as Johnny says, if CAS confirms the decision of the appeals committee, FIFA's intention is to play a match, a playoff. He called it a playoff. Don't come at us with play in. He called it a playoff. Between the team that lost the final of the CONCACAF Champions League, LAFC, and the next team in their ranking, which is America. And as I said, I don't like any of the things surrounding the game. I don't like the vibes of this. I don't like FIFA basically saying, let's go grab a big chunk of money out of American soccer again, or North American soccer again, by playing this game. But, and I appreciate that the CONCACAF Champions League in the past and the Champions Cup can be a big deal. But to me, this would be the biggest game between an MLS team and a Mexican club, maybe in the history of North American soccer. I do think it would be hyped up maybe to unbearable and annoying levels, but I also think it could be fun.
Mike in the chat had a note that's kind of middle ground, that he's excited for like the idea of it, like, you know, teams that don't really get to play against each other in a competitive format. And I feel that way to a degree. Like, it's great to see, you know, new matchups. And in like this essence of the Super League, if there was like a, you know, you win your domestic league, then you move to the European championships, you win the European championships, then you move to like a world level, like just, you know, adding another rung. The problem always was the, you know, these competitions, these elite ones weren't merit based. But what I was, you know, trying to bring it back to was that the reaction of this and the people's appetite for this globally, you could probably summarize it in the television deal. I mean, broadcasters across the globe are paying huge amounts of sums for established leagues, brands, and tournaments, where one of the leading, I think it was ITV, I saw reported, actually put forward a $0 or £0 bid for the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
And then they had to essentially do the DAZN and get some funding from Saudi Arabia and stuff like that to even have one. So that kind of shows where the broad reaction is. But there are some elements. I'm sure once it comes time, there could be some fun games in here. But an odd tournament on our shores this summer.
Yeah,
no
a tough sell, I guess, is the bottom line, again, because it's new, because it's not something we're sort of used to, and new, what I mean in the expanded version of it, obviously. And look, I don't really begrudge anybody the right to sort of start something. I mean, especially in American soccer, and this is FIFA, so it's a little different, but American soccer, we're always starting from zero. We're always starting from scratch. We get very precious about, well, you had to hand out song sheets to the supporters group, like in Austin when they launched. And that was this big story. And it's like, well, how else are they going to get there? Like, I don't really I really don't have a problem with that. But there are certainly things that feel like they're being jammed down our throats, but feel like they can't really fit into the schedule we already have, which is pushing players to the brink. But there's so many things about this that just feel unnecessary, right? And again, in a saturated market when it comes to club friendlies and European clubs coming over here and trying to get their piece of the American soccer pie. And I'm not trying to be too protectionist. I don't think this is a good moment in history to be overly protectionist. I don't think so.
Some say.
But I will say sometimes I do feel that thing of like, we need an opportunity to build our soccer without all these other outside entities coming in and trying to steal away attention and money. And it's really hard. It's really hard.
So we'll get confirmation in a few weeks per Johnny when the Court of Arbitration gives their final ruling, but we'll see what happens. But I think we have a feeling we have a play-off game in our midst. If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do so now. Morning Kick Around's YouTube channel crested 2,000 subscribers as we were sleeping last night. So if you haven't already, you're watching the show, hit subscribe now. Also, thank you to our brand new members. If you want to do that, that is available too. Memberships, exclusive perks, support the show. Nothing but win in there. You can follow us along on social media at X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Find us on your favorite audio platform as a podcast, Morning Kick Around. Search on your podcast app, and then you can also
give us a review. Do a review on your podcast app, please.
Yeah, do that too. And you can also support at coffee.com/morningkickaround. A little later in the show, we are going to speak with Buffalo President Peter Marlette Jr., excuse me. But next up, we are going to get weird. The pros and cons of the European calendar and maybe a hypothetical one-off spring tournament is in our midst. American Soccer is Weird. Up next here on Morning Kick Around. American Soccer is Weird here on Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert. He's Jason. There's been a lot of speculation on MLS's teasing of switching to the European calendar currently and have always gone from spring to fall. A couple months ago, they teased that they were thinking about switching to the fall to spring calendar to align with the European transfer windows and schedules and international windows and whatnot. And there's a lot of back and forth. There seems to be pros and cons to both of these setups. I kind of wanted to go through and kind of really hammer those down, what the true pros and cons of that, and then what could have been had this the new tournament, this new calendar been instilled after World Cup 2026.
Yeah. Rob came to me with an idea for part of this, and we'll have some fun. But I do think it is interesting to break down the pros and cons of the calendar switch, Robin, and we maybe touch on these a bit when this whole saga played out last week. By the way, I wrote kind of on the opinion havers and why on my newsletter, which you can find at Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. Go type that into your Google machine or your search engine, and you should be able to find the newsletter. You can sign up, and maybe once a week you'll get something scribbled down by me, typed out. It'll be easier to read. We did talk about some of the pros and cons, but maybe delineating them, specifically in this moment. All right. You mentioned this already, right? This is number one for a lot of people. Line up the transfer windows. Now, right now, there's a lot of overlap in transfer windows between European football and American soccer. But the difference, of course, is that when MLS teams are preparing for their season, European clubs are in the middle of their season. Yeah. And when MLS teams are in the middle of their season, European clubs are preparing for their season. And that makes it tougher to execute a transfer. And it obviously puts a lot of pressure and stress on players who, when they make the transfer, something you mentioned the other day with Kevin De Bruyne, I think, Rob, which is they're being asked to make a transfer in the summer and just play right away. Just come in and play. You don't get any preseason. You don't get your time off, really. You kind of, and sometimes there are guys that'll make the move. And it's like, oh, yeah, he's coming over, but he's going to take 2 weeks. And he's going to go to Saint-Tropez. Meanwhile, that MLS team is like, we're playing games. You got to get over here because we need your help. We can't score goals or whatever it is. So
we need to get in the top 9 of our league.
That's right. We're in 10th. You got to come help us. We got to get into the top 9. I think that is definitely a pro. The idea of lining up those transfer windows to facilitate business with leagues that operate on that calendar. Now, there are leagues that don't, operate on that same exact calendar, who you will sort of be, again, disconnecting from. But I think it seems pretty clear that the CSOs of Major League Soccer, in a mostly consensus kind of way, like this idea.
Yeah, the transfer windows align. It helps players come over at more natural times. Uniformity with the leagues. International breaks would align depending on how they took a winter break. The January international camp may, I don't know if there's a break there that may or may not go away.
You're not care about that.
No.
Not a concern. I mean, okay. if U.S. Soccer doesn't get to do a January camp, I don't think it'll be a great big loss. But yes, in general, international breaks also part of this. Let's move on to number 2 because I don't want to belabor too many of these.
All right, what are the cons of?
Oh no, I got more pros. I just think we need to get to another pro.
All right, what's the other pro?
One of the other pros gets mentioned all the time as well. In a country where getting any attention for soccer is difficult, especially when you're playing domestic league soccer rather than, the World Cup or something. When you play your most important games of the year, and by the way, international break is part of the story too, because MLS tends to play some playoffs, take a big break with the international November window, and then have to come back and try to restart momentum. When you play your most important games during a time of the year when most of the sports conscious country is watching American football, it doesn't feel smart from a business perspective, from a growth perspective. So if you flip the calendar, then you would have the ability to get away from American football. Now, and by the way, the World Series also in that playoff period as well. So the end of the baseball season, football season, those are problems. I think it's not like you would just have a free runway and you would be the only game in town. There are other things happening in May and June that would grab some attention. But that is an idea.
Another pro to this would be what? I'm trying to think of what else would. I mean, those are big ones. Obviously, I don't want to belittle those things you mentioned. Those are
one more pro, and this is climate. Climate can work both ways, right? For this question, we're going to get to the cons, and weather will be a con. But in terms of a pro, playing through the summer and playing in places like Orlando and Houston and Miami and Dallas, it's hot. Rob, it's hot. I don't know what it's like in summer up in Michigan, but it is hot. And down
June and
here,
July and first part of August are crazy.
South of the Mason-Dixon line, you walk outside and you're drenched in sweat in about 3.5 seconds. And it's really hard to play dynamic, attractive soccer in that weather. Everything slows down to a crawl. And I think quality-wise, MLS would definitely benefit from having more games in more temperate weather. The problem is, of course, there are large stretches of the calendar, if you flip it over, where you're not playing in temperate weather, or you can't play in any northern city. It's just flipping over where it's worse to play soccer.
Mark in the chat, new soccer fan here. Last year, the MLS playoffs dragging on with the international breaks broke my interest in watching the final. That goes to that international break. MLS has tried to dodge around that quite a few times, but no matter how they formatted it, that international break in November, really throws a wrench in the works. So cons. Winter weather, obviously, the huge one. There's been lots of back and forth with in the commentary, like winter weather. I mean, obviously, you can massage the schedule, have a break, play some of those border games of that break in the warmer cities. But also, I think a con that comes to me is there's not a lot of tradition in American soccer. And for those folks who have built a tradition of going to the games and, maybe certain weekend, the 4th of July, they always go to the game or this or that and the other. We have 20 in certain cities. There's, 2 decades plus of American soccer tradition, and switching that up might derail some of those established traditions in a country where we don't have too many.
Yeah. And this is something I wrote about in my newsletter piece, that there are lots of people, and I imagine lots of people in our chat today watching the show, whose lives on some level center around their soccer team. And when you are planning your year out, and it kind of lines up, right? It's like we come out of Christmas, or we come out of the holiday season, we start the new year, it's January, you sit down and you're like, so what are we going to do this year? You want to go on vacation? What are we going to spend our expendable income on? And you're like, oh, well, we got to buy season tickets for the local team, the MLS team. Like we do every year, right? We go out every year, and some people are supporters, and this is part of their social fabric, right? It's not just I go watch my team. It's I go watch my team with my people. And if you say to those people, hey, guess what? We're completely upending the rhythms of your life. Those people aren't going to be like, yep, sign me up. They're going to be like, no, that's going to change. I'm not going to do it anymore because this doesn't fit the calendar of my life. Now, the question for MLS is, should you care about those people over whatever pros you see in switching the calendar? I do think this is a big one, though. I really do think this is a big one.
Yeah. What if the tradition is on summer vacation, my kids, once they're out of school, we go to every game? Stuff like that is definitely worth considering. And then I think, this story comes back up because MLS, made a press release saying that, like, we're not going to do it in 2026. We're kicking the can down the road. And a lot of people are saying that would have been an amazing time to start a whole new format right after the World Cup on home soil. But the thing that I'm most upset about, obviously that launch after the World Cup would have been great, but there would have been a dead spring in the calendar in America. And I feel like that is such a missed opportunity. This could have been a summer spectacular, most extreme American soccer spectacular tournament where it's no holds barred. We can Americanize everything to the hilt. It's a one-off. It's like a reintroduction, a rebranding of American soccer, if you will. And I mean, you could have flamethrowers, you could have monster trucks, cheerleaders, like 2-pointers.
So I need to know if the Ultras are on board with your very Americanized soccer tournament idea, because
this would be the place to get the MLS shootout back in there too.
I try not to be too apologetic about our American tendencies towards spectacle and all of these things, right? We did have an issue about bounce houses. You and I kind of did not agree on that. You were more of a pro bounce house person than me when we talked about Buffalo. I do have that thing, a little bit of shame around the idea of like, oh, it's overly American and the Europeans are going to tisk us and all that stuff. You're English. You should be the one that brings that aesthetic to the table. And instead, it's me sitting here going, no, I don't want to be too American.
But imagine if this is the opportunity. This is just a one-time thing. There will never be another time where there's just a 3-4 month gap before the World Cup.
As long as we don't go too far. And by the way, if you want to see what seems like an Americanized version of the sport, and I think there are multiple kinds of this now, but the Kings League and the Queens League, which is what Piqué is doing over there in Spain. If you don't know about that, go watch a little bit of that. That feels like what an American marketing team would come up with in order to sell the sport of soccer.
Yeah, no doubt. We're like the final minute of the match. There's like a dice that gets rolled out, and it's like
Yes.
whatever like mini game that is decides the game. And there's also like the baller league. I've seen Micah Richards do it, but this is I threw my ideas for the most Americanist soccer tournament into the AI machine, and I got a few different aesthetics out of this. And there's some fun here.
Okay, so uncanny valley stuff is part of the AI image creation process every single time. It always makes me uncomfortable. I just want to get that on the record. I guess that's supposed to be Don Garber, the bald smiling man. He's on the billboard. We have some sort of rock band. They wear suits. And then there's cheerleaders. I guess
It's a legacy act, rock band. It's a legacy act.
Those cheerleaders' heads are not on right. In fact, those cheerleaders.
Look at the bottom right, cheerleaders.
I think there's some wardrobe issues, which I do not want to address. Okay, let's leave those bottom right who have flame arms. Why do they have flame arms? Okay, so but I don't know why you did this, Rob. There's another one. And by the way, AI cannot spell when it creates an image. It cannot. It's impossible for it to spell correctly.
Just imagine the Mercedes-Benz Arena with like the Saudi El Halal versus LAFC, and there's just flamethrowers, monster trucks, DJs, everything you could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, yes, let's go. People are getting burned in
Look
the
at that
crowd
flamethrower.
in this one. That's also not the proper dimensions for a soccer field. I'm gonna point that out. I'm gonna point that out. So, how do the monster trucks flying into the stadium? Is that maybe the idea of this one?
I think they might be parachuting.
Extremte? I don't think that's a real word.
That's not Spanish or Portuguese or something.
Once in time, not. No, I don't know, man. I mean, okay, so
it's at the Colossal Arena.
It is at the Colossal Arena. I think you have one or two more here. This is elite again. So I guess that's just an absolutely brolic Don Garber, just absolutely jacked. He's been hitting the gym. He's got some Jeff Bezos energy happening.
Sinister, babe. That's real sinister.
Are those broadcast desks? Again, I don't know what's happening here. There's fireworks happening. Okay, anyway,
it's everything to appease the bald commissioner here. Everything's to appease him.
Yeah, that's Robert's idea.
There's one more. My very favorite one is still to go. Hopefully,
I think I missed that one somehow.
Oh, no.
I think it didn't get in, so I apologize for that. What was your favorite one? Describe it for us.
Oh my goodness, I'll have to like hold it up on my phone or something. Here is my favorite one out of the whole bunch.
Okay, give me a second. Maybe so you just respond to some people in the chat, let them know, give them some love, and then I will bring in the other one because I do think I can do it very, very quickly.
All right, Zach in the chat said the only thing that needs is a bear riding a motorcycle. Michael, these are amazing, and flame cannons are a favorite for me. And there's one. That one really makes me happy. But it was the billboard. Oh, you already got to that. The billboard with the rock band. You already got to that. But this one, a whole lot of fun. I mean, monster trucks, soccer, fireworks. What's not to love? And this one even includes some teams along the bottom.
Those teams, those aren't sponsors. Those are teams because it looks vaguely like an Adidas-like logo. But you're right. Maybe those are teams, misformed animals and things like that.
They're the guest teams to join the Major League Soccer teams in the most intense, extreme American soccer tournament spectacular 2026. You robbed us, MLS. What could have been?
I think I'm more intrigued by your idea about the rules going out the window on some level. Not the rules. I mean, we still play outdoor 11v11. We play normal soccer, but maybe we do things like the 30-yard shootout. Maybe there are some tweaks here or there. I don't know. I mean, it could be very American. Full on halftime shows. By the way, we did not get to this in long balls, but since we're talking extravaganza and halftime show, I believe Lincoln Park is set to play the
We talked about that, but it's confirmed. It's confirmed.
So crazy. That is so wild. All right, Rob, I think that's enough of your madcap idea.
We got one more from a member, though. Shark tanks surrounding the pitch might be needed for.
I think that was
this.
what that was. I think we kind of had a vague Shark Tank situation with the Shark Tank. Okay, I see. Actual Shark Tanks. Yeah, you're right. We do need that. We need animals somehow involved. Bears chained to the benches or something. I don't know.
Very good, very good. Thank you for participating in that. What could have been in 2026. If you want more action like this, subscribe. We crested the 2,000 subscriber mark, and only looking to keep on growing that. So if you haven't hit subscribe already, do so now. It doesn't cost a thing unless you want to contribute to the show and add a membership. But you don't have to, though, if you don't want to just yet. But some perks to those who get the membership. Your comments get on screen, and maybe some bonus content and some other perks for members. You can follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note at morningkickaround@gmail.com. And then you can also follow us as a podcast. Search Morning Kickaround on your favorite podcast platform. All right, we are moving into, and there's also coffee.com/morningkickaround if you'd like to support the show there. We are going to come back in just a second with the third segment of the day. We got a pre-recorded interview with the president of Buffalo Pro Soccer, Peter Marlette Jr. We're going to come out of that with a little bit of an update. Some facts have come to light since we recorded this interview, but enjoy, get to know your district, Buffalo Soccer, here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome back here on Morning Kickaround. Buffalo Pro Soccer made some headlines by selecting their stadium location for their upcoming USL Championship side. And unfortunately, it looks like when our fabulous co-host left the studio, we lost that interview with Peter Marlette Jr., but we will get that posted as soon as we can on the feed. Unfortunately, our good friend Jason Davis left. He had some obligations to step out, and it looks like when he left the studio, we lost the interview there. Great interview with the president of Buffalo Pro Soccer. But the update we were going to provide you following that interview, after the selection of Buffalo Pro Soccer, selection of the 427 Elk Street location, they're going to be building a 7,600 seat facility with the adaptability to add more seats. The president, Marlette, reviews that and talks about the exciting stuff in the future. But we were going to note, since we recorded that, there has been a little bit of a trepidation about the site that was selected. I'm going to go to local news in Buffalo, WKBW. They report that should there be concern about the selected site there for the Buffalo Soccer Stadium, it's reported that there is concern about PVC chemical solutions being right next door to the site. Apparently 4 years ago, a small school called Medale stopped, forgive me, Buffalonians, if I said that college name, Medale, stopped playing at the site because of a strong smell of chemicals coming from the plant, and the chemical companies pushing back against this, pushing back against the soccer stadium, and bringing concerns to President Peter Marlette, who we had the interview with. Peter says, we took this very seriously going into this, doing significant research leading up to making this decision. So something to consider there in Buffalo, not 100% straightforward. Further context of the concerns is New York State Department of Conservation ordered the temporary close of that chemical plant next door. The university filed a lawsuit and halted play at that sports complex, saying the smell of sulfur dioxide was causing eye and respiratory irritation. However, a month later, a judge dropped the injunction on the plant. So definitely maybe not 100% straightforward. And one more comment from President Peter Marlette. He said, "We are aware there may be some concerns surrounding the location, so we dug in very deep before making the decision. The air quality has been tested and independently and by South Buffalo Development for a long time now. So sounds like Buffalo Pro Soccer, the leadership there, saying the right things and doing the things, saying they've addressed this, but a little bit of controversy, or I don't know if controversy, but concern about the selected site there. Jenny, give me the thumbs up. Are we able to play that interview? All right, take two. That's the beauty of live show. Welcome, Peter Marlette. Back here on Morning Kick Around. Buffalo Pro Soccer made some headlines by selecting their stadium location for their upcoming USL Championship side. And to discuss this further, we're now joined by Peter Marlette, Jr., president of Buffalo Pro Soccer. Welcome in to Morning Kick Around, sir. Busy time, I'm sure.
Yeah, no question, but thrilled to get the invite. Thanks for having me, guys.
Obviously, we're big fans of any stadium getting built for soccer in America. We're fans of pretty pictures of those stadiums. And Peter, I guess we were trying to catch up, from a removed position of what's going on there a couple of months ago, and now you've taken this big step. So what ultimately led to this stadium location being selected, and obviously what kind of work has been done and still needs to be done to get where you want to be?
Yeah, so a ton has gone on behind the scenes and in the past year. As you guys know, a stadium and a stadium location are, really defining factors of a club in the U.S., club anywhere, but especially in the U.S. and USL. So we did a ton of homework, a ton of, research on, I started with 25 plus sites, and then we really whittled it down to 3 finalist sites about 6 months ago, and just dug in completely on those. And yeah, we announced last Friday that we had made our decision in the Valley neighborhood of Buffalo, which is a neighborhood right in Buffalo, about 2 minutes from Larkinville, which is probably my favorite neighborhood in Buffalo, and right outside of downtown. It's a great site, and we're going to be able to be up and playing by that 2026 season, which has been the goal from day one.
I wanted to ask you, what is the Buffalo soccer scene like, and what makes this the moment to make this bold move towards pro soccer in Buffalo?
Yeah, the Buffalo soccer scene is great, and I'll be honest, I grew up here and I've spent most of my life here, but I was away for about 8 years prior to coming back and taking on this project. I was abroad in Switzerland for a couple of years, getting a master's and working, and then was at FC Dallas for a brief period in business development. And then most recently was the general manager of Union Omaha in USL League One, and had a very successful tenure there. But I've been away from Buffalo for, like I said, about 8 years. And it was a great soccer scene when I left. When I came back, totally different soccer scene, unbelievable. There was really one soccer bar in Buffalo when I left, 8+ years ago or whatever it was. When I came back, you go to countless bars throughout Buffalo and Western New York on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, and they are just full. We're actually having a community town hall at one of those bars in downtown Buffalo called the Banshee, which is an Irish pub that, it's standing room only Saturday and Sunday mornings, and it's far from the only one in this city. So frankly, I'm surprised that somebody hadn't already done this, but I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be the one to do it.
Now, Peter, 7,600 seats, I think, initially for your stadium. I say initially because I imagine you would like to have the ability to expand if the club is a success and that demand is there. So, how much can you sort of think about the dream scenario when you have sort of the business of actually just getting things started and finding a proper place to play?
Yeah, listen, the day-to-day of getting the business started, locating the proper place, putting together the ownership group, all of that, that's a ton. That takes up a lot of time. But in every decision that you make in that process, you have to be thinking about what's next. And especially with USL implementing promotion and relegation and moving towards Division I status, or having a league with Division I status, you know, according to the federation right now, 15,000 seats is the minimum. So with our architects, Labella Companies has been our architects, and our modular construction advisor and builder 6-5 stadium experience, we planned everything with the intention of expanding this if and when necessary.
That's very interesting. Would an expansion of, like you said, it was a modular sort of stadium. So what does that mean? Just like the stands that are there, just there's places added to the back of it. What does that even look like?
Well, so right now, and if you'll go to BuffaloProSoccer.com and check out our renderings or check out our socials, you'll see those renderings. Right now, it is a horseshoe shape with an open end that is going to be open for general admission. Those 7,600 seats that you mentioned, Jason, that's seating capacity, so it's not counting the PA on that open end.
Okay.
So, you know, the actual capacity number is higher than that, obviously. But yeah, it is building all three of those stands in a way that they can be expanded upon, built on top of, and also we've got a whole end line right now that is open for GA. You build a stand there and it increases capacity pretty quickly.
Yeah, you said USL introducing promotion and relegation obviously is now a part of this. You guys were getting off the ground before that vote and that decision and that announcement came, and obviously First Division as well for USL as something they want to institute. So does that change? Did that change anything ambition wise? Did it change anything about your conversations you might be having with potential ownership interests or local interests who are engaged with you?
Yeah, all of the above. That was a massive announcement for the American soccer landscape, but especially those who are building and investing in USL. I will say all of my current investors, you know, immediately called me and were thrilled about this announcement. And then a lot of people who I haven't spoken to yet gave me calls or sent me emails when they saw that news and realized, you know, this is going to be unique. This is going to separate USL from the rest of professional sports in this country. And it's a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to win our way to Division I status and earn our way to Division I status by putting a good product on the field. And that's what I did in Omaha, and that's what we're going to do here.
That's interesting to hear that from the investors, the folks putting money into this. The argument against Pro Rel is like losing like investments and whatnot. So you're saying that the folks that are working with you on this financially, there was more excitement than angst when the Pro Rel announcement came out?
No question about that. I actually heard very little angst. You know, I think when you see the clubs abroad in European leagues that get crushed by getting relegated, it's a very different model. It's a very different system. Those broadcast revenues that they're giving up are enormous. And while the broadcast revenues in USL, I am sure, are going to grow significantly, it's not going to be so crippling to go down to League One or Championship, depending on where you're starting. You know, having said that, I have absolutely no intention of getting relegated at any point, and my ownership group is well aware of that. But you know, this is different. It's a more sustainable model, and frankly, I don't know that I got a single call from an owner, you know, concerned when that announcement came out. It was all excitement.
All right, sounds like everything's kind of coming together. One thing that soccer people love to talk about is what your team's going to look like on the field in terms of color schemes and kits, Peter, and obviously the name. So we got you said you're a year out from putting your team on the field. Where are we with that process?
Yeah, so I've been working with my marketing and PR firm, who are a local firm, but they do global work called the Martin Group, for months now in building our brand. But what was really important to me is that, and I think a lot of clubs have recently fallen into this trap in the U.S., that our branding and our crest didn't look like it was devised by sports executives and marketing people in a boardroom, you know. So We built what's called our Creative Council, and we're going to be on social introducing all of their profiles in the coming weeks here. But the Creative Council are 5 local artists and creatives who came up in Buffalo, live in Buffalo, do their work in Buffalo. You see their work all over this city. And we've been really leaning on them to help us develop this brand and make sure that it is authentic, and that it doesn't look manufactured in a boardroom. So the announcement is coming soon enough, but okay. I'm not able to break anything for you today.
You don't have like a list of 5 names that we can talk about? Come on, Peter.
I can't do it.
I'm sure we could narrow it down a little bit. Will there be an FC or an SC at the end of the name?
I can tell you I expect neither to be at the end of the name.
All right. See, I like that. That's intriguing to me. Okay, I'm on board with this. Whatever. And look, obviously I have no business telling people from Buffalo what their soccer team should be called. I just, we get very wrapped up in imaging and stuff. And Pro Rel coming in is going to make USL particularly unique. And as somebody who wants to see the sport grow in America, I'm all for USL differentiating itself. You came from Omaha. You talked about your experience in Omaha. What did you learn in Omaha with a club that is playing in the 3rd division, but has obviously been pretty successful, is trying to figure out their own stadium situation? What did you learn there that you're bringing to Buffalo?
I learned a ton, and on the sporting side and on the technical side, I went in there with some beliefs, already going into it, using advanced statistics to build a roster, stuff like that. And though you had to tailor it a little, it went pretty well in Omaha. So I plan on continuing that. But I think what was most important in Omaha was realizing how important it is and how to go about forming a genuine relationship with the community that you're representing. These community town halls that we've been doing, we've tried to do them monthly, though it hasn't quite worked out, but we've done it just about monthly for the past year in Buffalo. It's basically just Buffalo Pro Soccer buying a beer for anyone who comes into the bar or whatever it may be that we're at, and me sitting on a stool or up on stage answering questions for, we schedule it for an hour. It ends up lasting 2 hours every time. And we started that in Omaha, not from day one, but it was something that we realized was absolutely necessary to, we're going to represent these communities that we play in, and we can't just assume that we know what that looks like. We need to engage with the people who are spending their money with this club and who are allowing this club to represent them, if we're really going to understand what we're building.
You said that you've been holding community town halls and be doing so while in Buffalo. How long has there been like a public facing side to this Buffalo Pro Soccer project?
It was at the end of March last year that we announced this. A lot was going in behind the scenes for months leading up to that, but it became public end of March.
And at this, so again, I mean, where you talked about the amount of media that you're doing, obviously on the back of the stadium announcement, Peter. I'm very fascinated to see how this all plays out over the next couple of months. You also said, you bring that technical team building side of things from your time in Omaha. When does that part of this start for you? I mean, you said you don't ever want to get relegated. That now is suddenly a thing in USL. You got to put a winner on the field, Peter.
Yeah, listen, that process started a year ago, more than a year ago. I've got my player database that, when I'm working in a GM role is more of a daily update, but, for the past year or so, it's been more of a weekly update. But I've got my player and technical staff database. After every game, I'm sending some WhatsApp messages to people, congratulating them on their goals, stuff like that. Nothing against the rules, just friendly conversations. But it's that's constant. That has to be always happening.
Might be a little too early, but it sounds like you're already working on it. Is there anything that's going to be unique about the way you're going to construct it? Do you have a local talent sort of leaning, a young talent, a foreign talent? What kind of approach are you taking at this stage?
Yeah, there are some local players who are playing professionally right now who I'm having conversations with, and we've already formed Buffalo Pro Soccer Academy, and it's small right now. It's very much in its infancy right now. We've got our under 14 boys at Dallas Cup as we speak, so that's exciting for us. But yeah, the academy system, it is absolutely a goal of this club to have at least one academy contract, if not professional contracts, coming out of that academy every year. There's a ton of talent in Buffalo and in Western New York and Southern Ontario, which we'll be able to draw on being right on the border here.
Nice.
Where I sit I live in downtown Buffalo. I could be in Canada in 5 minutes. So we're right there, and that's a great market for soccer talent. We should be able to develop some of our own players by putting the right structure in place. There hasn't been the top of the pyramid professional team for those players, so it's been difficult to reach that level, but we believe we can do it. But listen, if you're going to compete in USL Championship, you need to be hitting on your international roster spots. You need to bring in the right players, and you need to be, identifying American talent better than your opposition.
Last one for me. I mean, again, get very excited about stadium renderings, but what makes me more excited is the actual stadium getting built. So imagine that I think you talked about obviously the goal is to have this ready in 2026. The modular stadium is probably going to speed up construction dramatically. What is that process? How long does it take? When can we start seeing pictures of shovels in the ground?
Yeah, shovels in the ground will be this summer. We have, a weekly set development meeting with about 20 people, engineers, architects, the modular companies, the whole development team. We have weekly meetings, but really we're all in conversation daily. Shovels in the ground this summer with the modular construction from 6-5 Stadium Experience should allow us to be open in 2026 for the 2026 season.
Exciting times ahead, Peter. For those in the audience that really want to follow along this story, it sounds like the naming and the branding announcement is going to come out soon, and then obviously this whole process of having a stadium put together there. What would be the way to get in on the action or follow the story closely for any listener out there?
Yeah, well, BuffaloProSoccer.com is our website, and we keep that very up to date. But our socials, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Instagram's our most followed handle right now, but we're on all the socials, so Buffalo Pro Soccer, and you'll be able to keep up. And I would also encourage locals. We've got our founding membership drive going on right now, so get your season ticket deposits in for special benefits, unique exclusive benefits, and priority access to tickets.
All right, Peter Marlette, Jr., president of Buffalo Pro Soccer. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround, and all the best on this epic journey ahead of you and ahead of Buffalo Pro Soccer.
Yeah, guys, really appreciate the time and love everything you do. So thank you.
Another big thank you to Peter Marlette, Jr., president of Buffalo Pro Soccer, for joining Morning Kickaround. Just a final note on this and the whole stadium location issue. PVS, the chemical company located next to this proposed stadium, simply stated that this is simply not the location for such a facility, referring to the soccer stadium. And then Marlette, in the local news article, replied that the site was fully remediated years ago and currently has been used for Buffalo Pro Soccer Academy and the Buffalo District Soccer League with no complaints. So keep an eye on that as that story progresses. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the program. We had good fun, plenty of news, and then even some AI imagination for the tournaments. If you hadn't subscribed to Morning Kickaround already, please do so. We crested 2,000 subscribers overnight. Be the next to do so. Tell your friends to subscribe to Morning Kickaround on YouTube.com. Follow along on social media. We are on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We've received some nice ones there. You can follow us as a podcast on your favorite audio platform. Just search for Morning Kickaround. And you can also support with a one-time donation or maybe something regularly scheduled at coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can unlock some exclusive content there. So thank you, new members as well. We added them. And then we got a full slate of Open Cup games tonight. I'm looking forward to being in Hamtramck for the DCFC Open Cup game against Westchester. So I will be back. We will have another show on Friday. And until then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.